Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Mathner, Associate Director of Troy University's School of Hospitality, Sport, and Tourism Management. The following program is a collection of interviews we did as a part of this year's Sport Management Conference. I spoke with the Directors of Athletics at Troy University and the University of South Alabama, as well as the Commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, to get insight into the practice of sport management for the benefit of our students. I hope you are able to gain some insight and perspective as well. Very happy to have Joel Erdmann, the Athletics Director at the University of South Alabama, with us this afternoon. Dr. Erdmann has been the Athletics Director at South Alabama for 14 years now, and prior to his current position at South, he was the Athletics Director at Southeastern Louisiana University, and before that he was the Athletics Director out in Florence, Alabama at the University of North Alabama. And prior to that, he actually was an assistant at South Alabama as well. Joel and I go back a long ways. We were classmates at Florida State in a doctoral program. So Joel, thanks for taking time out to visit with us and our students. Certainly appreciate you, your wisdom and what you have to offer in terms of information to our students and those who are watching. Got a bunch of questions here, both related to, the sport management industry, and then some questions relating to, college athletics in general, and no one better than you, who's been around as a practitioner and in academia for quite some time, to kind of allow us to pick your brain. So obviously you've been involved in college athletics for a long, long time, and I'm not trying to date you, but your wisdom is what we're after here. So, tell our students and those viewing, what kind of trends are you seeing now, if any, regarding what sport management practitioners are looking for when they are hiring at the entry-level position? And I know you at the highest levels may not be on a daily basis hiring entry-level positions, but the people you hire are hiring entry-level positions. So talk to us and talk to our students about what it is they need to know.
I think there's a long answer, and I'll shorten it, but there needs to be the obvious exposure and understanding of the appropriate skills and tools that are needed to perform the job described, right? Whether that's in compliance or academic services or marketing or creative, whatever it might be. Beyond that, and truly more importantly to me and in our organization, are the interpersonal skills of working together as a team, understanding that it's important that everyone understands the vision of an organization and their piece of that, and then some good old-fashioned work ethic. We're going to have to work at this a little bit. And along with that, an understanding that there's going to be some nights, there's going to be some weekends, and the world of college athletics is demanding, and it's time consuming. It's very rewarding, but somebody who's going to come in, understand that what they do is very important, understand that they need to work with others for a common goal, and to understand that this is a time-consuming industry.
It's interesting you chose to answer that question with those comments, because, quite frankly, students who have been working in the industry in some capacity prior to applying for this entry-level job should have already been exposed to about everything you just said, right? I mean, they should know that athletics at the collegiate level can be, time demanding. It can be a grueling event. It can be a grind at times. And so that kind of leads me to the second question, which involves, getting that experience and the value of internships that we and most sport management programs require for a diploma and to graduate. Talk to our students about how you think it's best for them to go about finding those internships and how to position themselves to be an attractive internship student, because as you very well know, applying for internships now really are almost tantamount to applying to entry-level jobs, because they're so competitive and they're so demanding, and so those agencies looking for interns, they want experience. So what do you think? How can these students go about doing the best job they can to put them in a good position?
I think building a resume as early as possible, prior to an internship, assuming that internship might be at various times during the educational process, and so volunteering in various activities, saying yes more than you say no. If there are opportunities involved in an aspect of collegiate athletics that maybe you don't have a specific interest in, but there's a chance to work and be exposed in this unit over here, do it and start to gain an understanding of college athletics overall.
Right.
And then when you are participating, be actively participating, be productive. A great attitude and a smile on your face goes a long way in our world, in my opinion. And people remember who's great to have around and who's going to be inspiring and who's going to have that self-initiative and doesn't need to be dragged through the day.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of that, goes and speaks to, hey, know your job, stay in your lane when you've been hired to work in athletics, but you can't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and volunteer your time and effort when your job is done, and to get a better understanding of the big picture of college athletics. So certainly that's great advice. As we go down to this third question, there's there's this topic of networking that we talk to our students about all the time. Brings up a lot as it relates to our students, again, trying to be in a great position to succeed, not just out of college into their first entry-level job, but also once they're in that first entry-level job in athletics, that networking really doesn't stop, does it? Talk to our students about what you think networking looks like, what it feels like to you, and more importantly, maybe what it shouldn't be, as our students listen to your response.
Yeah, networking is creating and nurturing relationships. And networking isn't necessarily shaking as many hands as you can and throwing out as many business cards or IDs, sharing phone numbers. It is having sincere, productive relationships, building trust, building credibility. In my opinion, I look at networking as, yes, it is important to know people, but it is even more important about what people who know you, what they think of you, and what impression have you left with them. And I would rather have someone who has left a tremendous, solid impression with a person of experience and have 2 or 3 of those rather than superficial, not real relationships with 15 people. Mm-hmm. Because they really probably don't know you. You need to touch people the best that you can, but also understand, make it authentic, make it sincere. And when you're helping someone, when you're working with someone, make sure you're aware of the impression you're leaving upon them. And if their phone rings about you one day, what is their response going to be concerning, do you know Tom? Do you know Mary? And tell me honestly what you think of their abilities.
Yeah, maybe we should rephrase and retitle the word networking to the word you used, which was relationship building, right? Because that's really what it's about.
It is. And I sometimes use a term of circle of influence. Mm-hmm. When you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you might have 2 or 3 people who are holding positions professionally that are going to turn people's heads, right? A professor that has known you for 3 or 4 classes knows if you get to class on time, knows if you come to class, knows if you're dependable, knows if you're reliable, knows if you can be counted upon when others maybe can't be. And as you mature and as you grow, that circle of influence starts to include 5 people, starts to include 7 people, and their titles might change from assistant professors or directors or assistant ADs to associate commissioners to presidents, et cetera, et cetera. So what I call a circle of influence must always be growing. And that is just that's not being self-serving, that's not being overly gracious, it's just treating people the right way and doing things the right way in relation to them.
Yeah, that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that with our students and those watching out here. What do you, as we go on to the last few questions here involving, the field of sport management, what do you think is the biggest misconception that's out there right now amongst our young people as it relates to working or wanting to work in college athletics? I think, you talked about, the long hours and the grind. What is it do you think that, people are surprised about when they're actually working in the business for the first time?
I think it's what the lay person and maybe a person considering entering the industry, what they see the most and what they're most familiar with are games and contests. And quite candidly, the games and the contests are the smallest piece of what we do. We prepare for those contests. We sell those contests. We make sure our students are achieving academically towards a degree so they're eligible for those contests. We create relationships around our city, around our community, on our campus to get people to come to those games and contests. And so I think I often hear from entry-level people that I really like games. Games are great. Games are fun. There's emotion, there's cheering, there's sadness. And that's all fine, but that's confined to a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour lifespan.
Yeah.
And there's a finite number of them that you're going to play, and the number of hours that go into feeding to that game are immeasurable. And that's really the work behind the curtain, how I say it, the work behind the game that feeds the game is the majority of what we do. And there's great reward in that. There's great enjoyment in that. And when you have a night at a game or a contest and it's a highly competitive, fun contest, you can kind of pause and enjoy the moment, but understand that would not have happened but for the good hard work of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And for thousands of fans and for many, many, many tens of thousands of people that help make it happen.
Yeah, it truly is a production, isn't it? I mean, it's a production that people don't appreciate at times. So, yeah, great stuff. Our last question here. If you were hiring right now for any entry-level position at the University of South Alabama, what is that one soft skill that you think is the most important and why? And of course, you alluded to having some interpersonal skills earlier in a previous response. Maybe talk a little bit more about what interpersonal skills mean to you, if that's a soft skill that you'd like to expand on a little bit, because there's certainly when we talk about the ability to communicate, that can go down a couple of different rabbit trails. So what is that soft skill that you think's rather important?
An understanding in an appreciation of serving others. Mm-hmm. It is not about me. It's not about I. It's about us and those that we serve. So if from an administrative or a staff support standpoint that serves 17 coaching staffs and 17 locker rooms, having a sincere understanding and enjoyment is in, we've got to work together, we got to serve each other so we can best support and serve the teams, the coaches, and the student athletes that are really the outcome of our department.
Right.
And I think, in today's world of social media and smart devices, we sometimes put greater blinders on, where it's my world and I'm going to see what I want to see and I'm going to do what I want to do, and that at times can be okay, but I don't think an organization can reach its potential unless we truly believe that helping each other to achieve a common goal, to serve the coaches and the student athletes, is really what we're here to do.
Right.
And in today's world, there are people that believe that out there, but they're not as common as you would like it to be, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, that's great insight right there for sure. And I wonder, from an academic preparation perspective, I wonder how we as academicians can instill that into our students. There's got to be some ways in which we can reinforce that, either in classes or projects or the like. So again, appreciate your comments on that. We're going to transition to some other questions here, kind of related to the collegiate sport landscape, so to speak. That landscape of college athletics, as you very well know, it continues to shift. You're right in the middle of it. As you reflect back over the past couple of years and compare it to, just 5-10 years ago, what issue or issues do you think has the potential to change the way that college athletics is governed now, viewed now? What do you think? What's out there that really can change the way we look at it?
I do think that as our world continues to change, and we must embrace it. We can't fight it. We can't stiff arm it. We got to put our arms around it and succeed in it to the best of our ability. And so I think we all must be happy to adapt. In the early 2000s, the walls were starting to tumble down when the academic progress rate was released. And there was all kinds of prophets of doom that this is going to kill college athletics and this is hard and this is difficult. But we managed it, and people are okay with it. And it's an afterthought now. It has enhanced graduation rates. It has enhanced retention. It's done all the things it wanted to do. Name, image, and likeness, transformation, regulations, being able to transfer openly, right, within conferences at various levels are all shocking, but we're managing it. We're getting used to it. The thing that concerns me the most is if we truly go down the world of employment.
Yeah.
And if student athletes transition to employees, that is an incredibly complex world that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. The potential of collective bargaining, the potential of unionizing, the potential of some schools maybe breaking away and running by their own rules. Is that all a possibility? Sure, but I'm not so sure. I think we in the group of FBS need each other. March Madness needs each other. But what concerns me about all this shifting, and whether it's realignment and schools jumping from conference to conference, and really due to revenue that they receive in doing so, right? Maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes, but I don't live in their shoes, so I'm not going to judge. But with all these things in the air, the thing that I try to hold on to personally and to communicate to our people the best I can, with all these distractions and all this uncertainty, let's never lose focus on what our true mission is. And that is graduating student athletes, creating an experience that they will have great memories, that enhances our university and our community. That's our core mission. And whether we're dealing with name, image, and likeness, Alston payments, more realignment, college football playoff expansion, whatever we want to talk about, let's be real where we're supposed to be real. Let's recruit the right kind of student athletes. Let's support them to the best of our ability. Let's get them to the graduation stage. And let's support our head coaches, and let's enhance our campus and our community, and keep it simple while managing the balls in the air, but keeping it simple and serve those that we're supposed to serve.
Yeah, I think sometimes the media and others tend to lose sight, and they equate college athletics with college football and college basketball, and they tend to forget about the other sports that are out there and the other student athletes that are out there that are really enjoying incredible experiences as student athletes. And it's been interesting to see the dynamic shift over the years in terms of how the media has portrayed this as we move forward. So, there appears to be some real possibilities out there that the Power 5 schools might break away, as you just mentioned, and try to take that NCAA CBS contract with them and kind of start their own governing body. I know you don't have a crystal ball in front of you, but if that was to happen, what would that mean, if anything, to a group of 5 schools, or is that really just so too hypothetical you can't even wrap your arms around that? Could the group of 5 exist on their own without an NCAA CBS basketball contract?
Yeah, I don't necessarily like talking publicly about hypotheticals, but in this case, I will. And again, this is just my opinion.
Understood.
The NCAA's revenue does basically come from March Madness, plain and simple, majority. And March Madness grabs the attention of America, in my opinion, and lends its attractiveness to the entities broadcasting it, due to those exciting upsets, the rise of the underdog to the various rounds of the tournament. And I think if you strip that away, I think it just takes the air out of March Madness. And I think that the tournament itself would lose its romance, it would lose its attractiveness, and just become a professional league. And so I don't think anybody really wants that. I might be wrong. I do think that there's a group of schools that just want the ability to do what they want to do within their resources. And they're already kind of doing that. I mean, there's a certain collection of schools that are giving full Alston money to every student athlete, whether they're on scholarship or walk-ons or whatever. And there's a certain collection of schools that want to be able to recruit a certain way and spend more money in certain areas, and they're allowed to do that. So I think if those collections of schools want to continue to invest or spend money in their athletic program in a way that their budget allows, that's fine. Those that can't, because we don't have the resources, aren't going to be able to do that. And I think as long as there's flexibility in that world, I think we'll stay together. I really do. And I think we're headed down that road where a certain collection of schools want what they want, and they're probably going to get it.
Right. Well, Dr. Erdmann, on behalf of the Troy University School of HSTM and Dr. Green and our faculty, we're so thankful for your precious time. We know you're a busy guy. Well, we're excited to have Keith Gill, the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, here with us this afternoon. Keith has been with the Sun Belt for, Keith, help me out, 3 years now, 2 years?
Actually 5.
Yeah. 5 years. Has it been 5 years? See, time flies when you have fun. But, prior to being the commissioner, being named the commissioner here at the Sun Belt, he was the athletics director at American University and had some experience with the NCAA. And it was during his tenure with the NCAA that I actually got to know Keith a little bit. And we're excited to have him here in our conference, and thankful for your sharing of your valuable time with us and our students. So I'll dig right into the questions and dive right into it, Keith. You've been involved in college athletics for quite a long time. To tell our students and those viewing, what kind of trends are you seeing, if any, regarding, what sport management practitioners are looking for when they're hiring at these entry-level positions? What are you seeing out there right now?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a premium on either raising money or finding ways to earn money or to create revenue. That's just really important. It's so expensive to run these programs, and folks are going to be looking for people that can be creative in that solution to create those opportunities. So as someone who kind of grew up in the compliance side, that doesn't mean there are not opportunities for people that grow up on the internal side and maybe don't have all the revenue experiences that some might on the external side. But I would encourage everyone to do everything they can to learn some of those skills so they can talk about it in an interview, how to generate revenue, how to raise money, because those things are always going to be really, really important.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a lost skill, right? We talk about the ability to sell, to develop, to cultivate donors, to establish relationships. All that goes a long way into raising money. So certainly, great advice for those who are wanting to get their foot in the door. Don't discount those avenues there as it relates to the development side of athletics. So talk about internships here. Most sport management programs really place a premium on students completing internships as a requirement for graduation. Tell our students, talk to them about how you think it might be best for them to go about finding valuable internships and how to position themselves to be an attractive internship student for an agency.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you start looking at home, right? If you're a student at Troy, you start developing those relationships in the athletic department around things that you're interested in, volunteering and trying to show your value and your worth. I think all those things are really important. So I think if you are on a campus somewhere, you really have a built-in kind of community that you can begin to tap into, build relationships, and kind of look for internships. I think also attitude is really important. I got my start as an intern at the NCAA, and that's how I kind of parlayed that into a full-time job. And I think part of the thing that really helped me there was I didn't say no to anything. I wanted to get all the experiences that I could, no matter what area it was involved in, no matter how hard the work was, no matter how much of a grind it was. And so I would encourage all your students, to approach their internship that way, because I think that is going to really help them and really set them apart from a lot of other folks. And I think in the long run, it's going to give them a more diverse kind of opportunity and set of skills that will really help them kind of into the future.
Yeah, and who would have thunk it, back in 96, 97, when you were an intern from the NCAA and you and David Snazy came out to Montana and Big Sky Country, I do believe, to pay us a visit. So yeah, you've come a long ways. And it's funny because you talked about attitude and the willingness to do more than you're asked. Take on more than you're asked to do, and that attitude certainly goes a long way. Similarly, in academia and even as practitioners, we espouse this idea, we push this idea of networking to our students, right? We tell them it's important to get to know people. Tell our students in your estimation, in your mind, what does networking look like? What it feels like to you, and maybe more importantly, what it's not.
Right. Yeah. So, to me, the first kind of network I think you build is with the people you work with currently, right? And you've got to do good work. Be the best at your craft around the folks that you are working with and create raving fans. So I think everyone thinks networking is, going to see Tommy, going to see Sally, getting to know them. And certainly those things are part of it, but you want to have some depth to it. It's interesting. I don't think having a network where people can't really speak to your work and speak to the quality of your work is really that helpful, because you're going to get a lot of calls and people are going to say, well, they're a nice person, but I don't know their work. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to advance you. So I think really focusing on trying to create raving fans where you work for people that can speak to the quality of your work, I think is really important. And then I think really trying to touch people in authentic and meaningful ways outside of the folks that you work in, whether you're volunteering on a committee. If you're volunteering on a committee that's outside your work, make sure you show up on time. Try not to dominate the conversation, but make sure you make thoughtful comments and make sure you do, your share of the work and responsibilities, and you'll create another set of raving fans. So I think you're trying to have really deep, really authentic touches with people who really get to know you and can speak to you on some depth. I don't think it really is trying to get to the reception and give your business card to as many people as you can and say, okay, now I know Rob Mathner, now I know Keith Gill. I think you're trying to create a series of deep relationships over time, and I think it takes some time to do it right. And I think those who create really deep and kind of authentic networks are the ones who can activate those in ways that help them move forward. And I think people who create more shallow networks find out that they may not be as effective as they were hoping or thought they would be.
Yeah, we asked this question of Dr. Erdmann, and he echoed your sentiments to a degree in that it really is more about the relationship building than anything else, and the value of those authentic relationships will go a long way. So I appreciate you echoing those thoughts as well. Last question in this area: if you were hiring right now for any entry-level position in college athletics at the conference office, the national office, Division I, Division II college athletics department, what is that one soft skill that you think is the most important for aspiring practitioners to have, and why do you think that skill is so important?
Yeah, I really think you want people to have an engaging personality and really get along with people. That's really key. My approach is trying to build really good teams, trying to create people who are connected to kind of the same goal and work together towards that goal. In order to do that, you really have to have really good relationships. And it's hard to create those relationships with people who don't have engaging personalities, outgoing personalities, good personalities, positive spirit. So I just think that, having a good, positive personality is a real good foundation for a really good employee. And so that's what I would encourage everyone to do and work on. And that's certainly what we look for here, because we're just trying to build the most cohesive and high functioning team we can. And you just don't do it with malcontents and mean spirited or bitter people. You do that with people who are generally happy, who want to work as a team and want to help each other.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate those comments. It's certainly difficult to work in an environment where folks aren't getting along for a variety of reasons. That makes for a tough work environment. I'm going to skip to the last question here, Keith, as we're running short on time. Put your compliance thinking cap back on, if you would, please. And we're going to ask you this one tough question. If there was one rule right now you wish the member schools would pass at the Division I level to make college athletics better, and I know that's a kind of a subjective term there, but if there was one rule to make college athletics better right now, not just for football and basketball, what rule or rules, or conceptually, what would you try to try to get done to make that happen?
Yeah, I'm going to change your question a little bit and say I would make myself a member of Congress, or actually all of Congress. And I really would pass kind of a comprehensive kind of college athletics bill that provided, kind of a limited antitrust exemption for the NCAA in certain space, put some guardrails around name, image, and likeness, uniform contract, some transparency to create a marketplace, kind of preempt state laws, kind of some of those things, add some health and safety components to that as well, and kind of settle the employment issue as it relates to student athletes. So I think that's what I would do. For jurisdictional reasons and authority reasons, the NCAA and schools can't really do that. But I really think that is, that would just be really helpful to the enterprise and bring some kind of sanity and clarity back to the business.
Yeah, no, that's good information. Well, Keith, so appreciate you taking the time to visit with our students. They'll grab on to every word that you have said. Well, good afternoon, and we're thankful to have Brent Jones, the athletics director at Troy University, here with us this afternoon. Brent has been at Troy for over 6 years, 4 of those as the athletics director. He came here from my alma mater, the University of Southern Mississippi, and prior to that, he was at Georgia Southern University as a former NCAA Division I and II, or 2 and 3 baseball player.
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. That's your claim to fame, is you win all 3 levels.
Correct.
And probably not many guys can say that. So we're glad to have you here to kind of share some insights with our students and others who are watching in. And so you've been involved in college athletics for a long time as a student athlete and as an administrator, both as associate AD, deputy AD, and now the athletics director. To talk to our students, share with our students and those who are viewing, what are the trends you're seeing right now as it relates to sport management practitioners and the hiring process? What are they looking for? Has anything changed in the last 5-10 years in terms of, what are they looking for exactly when you're hiring? And I know you're hiring a lot of upper-level administrators, but you're hiring people who are hiring those entry-level positions. So your influence is certainly paramount to who you hire in the athletics department.
Well, first things, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
I've spent almost 20 years in intercollegiate athletics as an administrator, from Ole Miss to Georgia Southern to Southern Miss and Troy. I've bounced around the 3-state corridor between Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. And so I feel like every day I've never had a job, right? I've always wanted to be on a college campus. Lou Holtz, they asked, hey, are you ever want to retire? He goes, I don't want to go to a place where people get older. I want to go to a place where people get younger, right? And so you feed off that energy. You feed off that excitement.
Yeah.
I really, I'm so thankful for what you and your colleagues do for really the future leaders of our industry. And right now it's a chaotic time. It's absolute chaos.
Yep.
And that is from some self-inflicted items, but also from some government and state items as well, whether that be name, image, and likeness, whether that be Bill of Rights, whether that be the transfer portal, whether that be revenue generation, or revenue sharing, I should say, whether that be employment status. There's a lot of uncertainty. So the first thing I would say is, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, there's a lot of uncertainties, and we're trying to get to have some kind of certainty going in the future. And that's really tough to be able to have. In college athletics, you have to always be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so you're dealing with 18 to 23-year-olds. You're also, and those are student athletes, you're also dealing with graduate assistants that are 23 to 25, as I used to be one at Ole Miss. But you're also dealing with really, really passionate leaders, and those are assistant coaches, and those are deputy ADs and directors and assistant ADs and head coaches. And so, you have to balance a lot of things. You have to balance the academy and athletics, and that's what excites me. It is I ended up a Division III student athlete, and it means the world to me to be able to have that education, to be able to receive my master's, and to really be able to take some of those things that I learned in the classroom and be able to practice them. But no day is ever the same. I will tell you that. You don't know what's going to happen as soon as you walk in with the emails, text messages, tweets, whatever that may be. But you have to be level-headed. But what I'm looking for in people is what I would tell you this is, and I have said this to the first time that we met and we developed the revenue generation class to really help propel our season tickets and single game tickets, which then spurred into bringing an outside company, an entity to help us with this. And we've hired some of our great students in that curriculum, or I should say from that class in our department. But what I would say is this, and I firmly believe this, I want to hire people who want to volunteer and work for free on the front end. I did that as a college athlete because I was able to dip my toe in and be able to say, and there's a reason for that. We want people to be well-rounded experience, whether that's compliance, whether that's academics, whether that's development, fundraising. They need to be able to have that breadth of experience. And one of the ways to do that is through internships. And it's not through required internships. It's through them needing to be able to understand, I need to get an understanding of what is going on. And so the basic level, I was a college graduate. I didn't have that chance to be able to perform an internship. So graduated from Oglethorpe University and went to Ole Miss was to receive my master's degree. And next thing you know, as I had an undergraduate, I was rolling T-shirts. I was developing marketing plans. I was going knocking on doors of Greek life as well as other places to say, hey, come to our games. How can we engage with you? And the one thing I learned, and I think that is really, if you ask any of my colleagues, coaches, student athletes that work with me on a daily basis, it's that has sort of transformed my life. And what I mean by that is there's no substitute for hard work. There's no substitute for integrity and hard work, creativity. And I feel like if every single day, this is a tough profession, this is an extremely rewarding profession, but you have to bring it every single day because we're asking our coaches, as you know, to bring it every single day. And we're asking our student athletes to bring it every single day. Right. This is not a profession that you're going to be able to sit back and just drink water at a water cooler or whatever that may be. And there are amazing other professions, don't get me wrong. But this is about, not everybody has a scoreboard at the end of the day, and you're judged on that. And it's not only just our student athletes, our coaches, but it's everyone else. Look, this past year, we've had the most successful competitive season we've ever had in Division I athletics here at Troy University. Every single one of our teams had a winning record but one. We set records in fundraising, ticket sales, attendance, licensing, corporate sponsorship revenue. We had our football team ranked 19th in America, winning the Sun Belt Conference Championship, confetti falling from the sky, your students running onto the field, taking down the goalpost. We bookended it with our baseball team finishing 35th in America. We had the second highest GPA we've ever had, and we had the most community service hours. The reason I bring those up is that's a scoreboard. We get judged daily, and so in this profession, it's so rewarding, it's so great. You have to have people who are intrinsically motivated, and you have to be able to have people who want to make a difference. Right. And as a practitioner, I feel like that's really what we're here to do, is to help people propel them through life, through sports with life.
Right. So would it be safe to say that as you look at individuals' resumes as they're applying for positions, for entry-level positions, or even let's just take it a step down and go and talk about internships, you're looking for individuals who somehow can demonstrate to you a passion for the industry as an intern, right, to get that experience. And then at the entry-level position, you're looking for those individuals who have a wide variety of internship experiences plus other experiences that would demonstrate their passion, their ability, their work ethic, their ability to grind on a daily basis to stay committed to the task at hand. That's essentially what you're saying.
So I'll split it too. From an internship standpoint, I'm not looking at what they've done because they probably haven't done a lot. If they're an internship, I'm looking at what they can do. You're projecting out what's their personality, what's their energy, what's their emotional intelligence, what's their IQ, what are those things that we can judge sitting in a conference room asking, hey, do you really want to work for free? Do you understand that you're not going to be in the stands tailgating anymore? Or, at a basketball game, you're going to be on the field, you're going to be on the court, you're going to be doing these things in a leadership. So really trying to project out those capabilities. And we can get into all those different levels of, how you present yourself, how you articulate your vision, your passion for it. And then the entry-level positions, I'm going to go half and half. I've changed over probably the last 5 years with the candidate pool, with the breadth of our candidates shrinking, and that's just not in intercollegiate athletics. That's in professional sports. That is in dentistry. That's in doctors. That's in nursing. That's in education. We have critical shortages across the university, or not across the university, across the state, across the United States. You see this constantly, and so we really have to really do a really good job of not just because someone has done this, they can do this. We have to be able to project our vision and then be able to have people and really be able to fine tooth, okay, are they going to fit the culture that we want? And that culture is what you just said. It's hardworking, it's grinding, it's never giving up, it's going that extra mile. It's about being responsible, having integrity to do those things. And so, because you represent, look, I tell our student athletes, our coaches, our staff, the T never comes off. Wherever you go, the T never comes off. You're always going to be a representative of Troy University, which is an amazing university led under Chancellor Jack Hawkins and his visionary leadership and what he's been able to do and propel this university forward, as well as our athletics forward. But the T never comes off. And so that's the first thing. You have to be able to understand, are you hiring a responsible person? The second is, can they add value to the university? Can they add value to the program that they're having? And I will tell you this, energy never sleeps. That's what they told me. They said, Brent, I said, look, I don't need caffeine. I make coffee nervous, right? Energy never sleeps. And so that's one thing that we look for. We look for passionate people who have a burning desire to make a difference, who are going to go that extra mile. And then you sort of fit them, what is it? What is their background? What do they want to do? And how can we do this? And how can we sort of help them get to their ultimate goal, while at the same time helping our student athletes, coaches, staff, and ultimately the athletic department.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, right? So, you take a look at today's pool of graduates, it can be tough to decipher, do they have that passion or not, And so you often, it's almost like a football coach trying to recruit players, you have limited opportunities for those contact points, and you're relying on references and past history. And so certainly sometimes it feels like rolling dice. But,
well, and I'll give you an example. There are 2 undergrad students that you taught that were doing an internship for us. And I don't know if it was a required internship or not.
No, it's required.
But they were in our athletic department, and it hadn't really even crossed their mind about going to graduate school. And I saw them, interacted with them. One, Sarah Welch, who actually works on campus now in admissions, she was on the phone and was calling for a food raiser. And look, dialing for dollars is not the easiest thing to do in the world. It's cold calling, it's talking to our donors, talking to our fans, asking them to support us for the benefit of our student athletes. And I walked past her twice. And I can only imagine some of the responses she was getting and how she handled them. As an undergrad, I said, wow. I said, Kyle George, Jonathan Swally, who both of them very well, I said, y'all need to take a look at her because she's going places and she's doing a great job. Right. And the other one as well, who's a current graduate assistant of ours as well, it was her energy, her enthusiasm, how she interacted with people. And again, we brought forward to her, hey, have you ever considered being a graduate assistant? Right. And so that goes to those data points. The T never comes off. You're always going to be looked at. And so I have to give credit where credit is due. Our undergraduate students come out prepared. Y'all challenge them in a way that I think that's thought-provoking, that a lot of other schools maybe don't do as much. Right. You understand the practicum side or the practicality of them needing to get experience working for different areas. And I think that's lost sometimes. Yeah. And so, again, Troy Sports Management, Hospitality, Tourism students, they come out, I think, a cut above. But those are 2 examples of us really bringing to those undergraduate students, hey, have you thought about a graduate assistant here? And there's been other times that we've gone outside as well. We hired Cody from in marketing from Georgia Southern, has another good program, and that we knew people there. And so we're always looking for someone who can continue that upward trajectory of our department.
Right. And, part of that whole process too, kind of leads us to the third question. We certainly try to coach our students up on the value of networking, and sometimes that's an overused word. That's a word that's kind of cliche-ish. And talking with Dr. Erdmann and Keith Gill, it's very interesting to hear their thought process on what that really means. I'm kind of interested in what does networking mean to you, or more importantly, what what doesn't it mean? Because I think there's tremendous value in our students in understanding how to leverage that for all the right reasons and make it an authentic kind of a trait or value that they understand moving forward. So talk to us about that so that our students understand how they can use that and why they should use that to their advantage. And yeah, you share with them your thoughts.
I think networking is critical. I think people do a very, very poor job of understanding networking. And I would actually, The Power of Who by Bob Bodine, who's a dear friend of mine. He actually has another book out too that's called Two Chairs. But The Power of Who. And it's about, you have all the contacts that you need if you use them correctly. Mm-hmm. And so it's 3 friends that are the closest, it's 5 on the outer, and then it's 10 total. And you utilizing those friends that know these other people and how to get to it. And so networking is not just going to a conference and shaking hands and giving out business cards. It's networking is utilizing yourself, Dr. Green, Dr. Dixon, Judson Edwards, the Dean of the Sorrell College of Business. It's about utilizing Kyle George, Sandy Atkins, Santiago Penzone, other ones that people come into contact with. And right. And it really starts with bringing it, I'll go back to the things I said, bringing it every single day. The 2 undergrad students that I mentioned had no idea that I was going to be there, had no idea that I was walking by, and literally was watching them work and was blown away with what they did. Now, because of that, I become an advocate. You want to be able to show people your worth. And part of that is, look, it's tough. It's tough when you have 50, 75, 100 people applying for jobs. And so what puts you a step above? It's the networking. And it's not you necessarily knowing everybody. It is your network thinking that you do a great job, thinking that you are a person of integrity, that you're a person that's responsible, that is going to be able to add value to that organization, right. And then you being able to, and oh, by the way, you've sat in my office before and really said, hey, I think this person's going to add value for you. And she did. She did a great job for us. And so having that trust factor and being able to know you and what you represent as well as others, and when someone picks up the phone and says, hey, look, I don't know where you're going with this coaching search. I don't know where you're going with this, director of marketing search or director of compliance search. But because of that, I want you to be aware of this person. I think they're really good. Well, guess what? They automatically go to the top. Mm-hmm. And we just hired a young lady, Courtney Smith, who's our director of compliance. She will start in about a week or so. The way she came here is because she came from Barton College, a Division II school, and she received her master's there, and I have encouraged her to get her PhD, by the way, so you can. Good. So has Santiago Penzone. But as part of this, she has a mentor, and it was Kit, who was Santiago's mentor. And so through that connection of networking, she has never been to the state of Alabama before we hired her, had never really come across the Sunbelt Conference or anything else. And she became excited because through her network and through one of our networks, realized, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is an amazing school, an amazing conference that is going places. And so that's what I would say. So how do we put this up into a nice big ball? Read the book, Power of Who. You can get it. The second part of it is make sure those connections, a lot of people go, oh, I need to know the AD at Michigan, or I need to know the AD at Georgia, or I need to know the AD at Texas. Well, I know them all as well, but who's going to help you more? It's the ones that you really consider close friends, and they're the ones that are able to say, hey, this person is worthwhile. To this example, I work with Joel, Dr. Erdmann, and I work with Keith, Commissioner Gill, daily on things. And so I have great respect for both of those gentlemen. And if anyone ever called me about them on Ask for Anything, I would be able to give them detailed analysis of that. Yeah. Just like if I'm calling about some of your students, you're going to be able to tell me the ones that show up late, the ones that go above and beyond, the ones that are great in the classroom, the ones that go out there and crush it on an internship standpoint. Yeah. That is what networking matters, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to hear you kind of echo the sentiments of Commissioner Gill and Dr. Erdmann, because they talked about the value of authentic relationships and going really deep with relationships and not shallow. It's not about just shaking hands and passing out business cards, because those individuals can only talk so much to other people about your worth because they don't know you. So if you don't take the time to develop those authentic relationships, then folks really can't go to bat for you in a meaningful way. Or if they do go to bat for you, they're doing so not really knowing you, and then they're taking a chance as it relates to their credibility.
Well, I will tell you
Right.
this. I think you need to find a mentor in every single one of your spots. I've been very fortunate to have a significant amount of mentors, and some of them are friends, and some of them are the same age I am. But they got into the athletic director role chair quicker than I did. And it's being able to bounce off anytime that you have tough decisions about that. And also, I would tell you this: you need to have a mentor, and then you need to have ambassadors that really that will fight for you. And look, I'm a mentor with one of my friends. I've been in their weddings. I've been to their weddings, but they will call me and ask me questions before any type of move that they make or any type of thought process. And being a mentor is not just telling them what they want to hear sometimes. It's telling them your opinion and maybe what they need to hear.
Right.
And so being able to have that authentic relationship, that genuine, makes all the difference.
Yeah, and I think both you and I have had those individuals who were able to confidently give us a kick in the butt when we needed it, and we saw the value in those relationships. So now we want to pay it forward. We're going to help those who need it because our lives were shaped in part by our mentors and their advice and guidance over the years. So that's great to hear. Talk about the landscape of college athletics. It continues to shift, as you mentioned earlier in the opening.
How much time do we have?
Well, exactly right. So, a question for our students as they try to try to put their arms around where we are in college athletics. What single issue, or maybe two issues, do you think right now, as of today, October the 30th, has the single biggest potential to change the way college athletics is governed right now? And there's several, but which one would you say has the potential and why?
So one is employment status. I think if someone doesn't mention the employment status, then you're missing that. And so you have a few different cases, Dartmouth being one of those right now with men's basketball. You also have at USC for football as well. And so you have those two on a collision course. And so what does it look like from an employment status standpoint? I just talked about in my earlier segments the academy and athletics. And at most universities outside the United States, sports are not tied to that university. Right. You play them more as a club or as an organization, and what makes the United States such a passionate university base, I should say, if I'm saying this correctly, is the ability to be able to tie in sports and amateurism. I'm a big believer. Look, I played Division I, II, and III college baseball, descending order, so I got worse over time, but it meant the world to me, right? Yeah, but it means the world to me that I know, look, I played a sport that was a sport of failure, and if I failed 7 of 10 times, someone said I was really good. Think about that, failing 7 of 10 times. There's a reason that so many different industries want leaders. And when they look for that, they want student athletes because they're naturally born leaders. Right. And so I will tell you this, I believe in the collegiate model, and we've been at several different conferences where you hear about people making X, Y, and Z. That's the 1%. That is the 1% of even Division I models that we have. And so we have to sort of figure that out. But the two items that I would have here is the employment status. And then I'm going to sort of, unfairly to you, I'm sort of going to throw a few things in. The second one is congressional federal legislation. And what I mean by that is everyone says the NCAA should not go down this path. Well, just so you're aware, the state sort of threw us in that way. So you had California 2 years ago that really started this train, and then you saw a trickle-down effect from Texas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, everywhere else about the name, image, and likeness. But the NCAA didn't say, hey, we want help. It's sort of because there's a patchwork system. So I would say employment status and then some type of federal legislation that we can all live with as part of it. So those are the two I would say. I would be interested to hear what Keith Gill as well as Joel said.
Keith echoed your comments as well. And for those students that don't understand the ramifications of employment status, the challenge with employment status is once you label or deem a student athlete an employee, the costs associated with that become quite concerning, as well as the ability for those employees to establish a union and to unionize. And so when all that happens, it becomes, from a cost perspective, there's some issues there which
And then you and I are treated differently, obviously.
Correct.
Than certain student athletes. That now with the transformational committee, all student athletes are guaranteed to be able to have their scholarships that are protected for it, depending if you come in at 2 years or 4 years.
Correct.
You know, you have the collective bargaining, but you also have the ability. You see in the NFL daily that
Yep.
there are cuts. You see Major League Baseball, people go up and down as part of that. And then I think, if that does happen with the costs associated, what happens to our Olympic sports? And
Yep.
that's what in Colorado Springs right now, they're really, really concerned
Yep.
about being professionalized amateur sports, because the United States of America, when you go out there and look at the Olympics, you know, we're able to dominate in a lot of these sports. Volleyball, gymnastics, swimming, equestrian, those things will get, you know, they feed into the intercollegiate amateur model.
Yep.
What happens there if that does happen? So there's a lot of things to untangle with that. And then right now the NCAA is under siege right now from all the different lawsuits that they're attacking.
Yeah, and again, for those of students that are out there, I think what is at the top of a lot of athletic directors' minds, if this does come to fruition, is that there probably is going to have to be some legislation from the membership to start to think about looking at the number of sports needed to be Division I, because you're going to have to start cutting sports to make ends meet. There's no amount of money that the Division I football playoff is going to be able to make that's going to be able to help underwrite the costs associated with that. And I think there's some challenges there.
And the one thing that I would say, and I say this a lot, everything has a balance. So if if we're going to go here, then there's going to have to something come down here.
Yep.
If we go here, everything is connected.
Yep.
And so right now, you have the CFP with the expansion, and Chancellor Hawkins was instrumental in getting from 4 to 12 as he sits on the CFP advisory board. And why is that so important? It's so important for several reasons, but one, it's about at the beginning of the year for us to be able to look into our student athletes, say you have a legitimate path to be able to play for the national championship. College football is the only one that doesn't have that ability. You've seen Gonzaga, you've seen Coastal Carolina in baseball, Gonzaga, and men's basketball. You've seen Butler, VCU. You've seen all these schools over time. It hasn't necessarily happened in a football stance because of the bowl situation. But it's very important. But yes, every single thing that we put out there is going to have a ramification, and we have to make sure for the whole of intercollegiate athletics that we look at this. And it has not necessarily helped us with conference expansion going on at the exact same time. And you see several conferences, 2 to be exact, that are now from sea to shining sea.
Yep.
And that's where I think Joel sat on the conference expansion committee, so did I. We worked with Keith Gill, and there were several others as well, and working with our CEOs. But to be able to get a Southern Miss that I worked at, that you went to school, know that passionate fan base, to be able to get a Marshall, I remember talking to Coach Blakeney, and he talked about the Marshall Plan. And if you're a historian, it's not the Marshall Plan that we had talked about. It's about getting as good as Marshall and being able to beat them. And then being able to add VCU, not VCU, ODU and JMU. We have a continuous states now with our conference. Mm-hmm. We're not spending XYZ of money to be able to fly. We're able to reinvest this in our coaches, our student athletes, our programs, and ultimately for our fans as well. And so I think that we're at that point now. It's a tipping point. How do we go? And obviously Charlie Baker, who's the NCAA president, came from Massachusetts, and a 2-term governor who was hired to really help with the politics. And I think he's adding a layer of transparency that has been needed for a while.
Yeah, no doubt. That was last question, so we can get you out of here so you can continue to serve our coaches and student athletes at the university. We talked about some of the landmines that we're trying to navigate. If you were to have a crystal ball and have the ability to ramrod some legislation through, and of course ramrod is probably the wrong word to use because you want consensus, you want some buy-in from the member schools. What is one rule or concept that you would like to see passed that would affect all student athletes in a way that would make college athletics better?
I think a protection for it. And so the reason why college athletics looks so different than it did 50 years ago, it's explosion of television, explosion of revenue. And so at the heart of it, sometimes the cynics, the media, the people from the outside say, look, they're not treating student athletes with the way that they need to be treated. And so what I would look at is I'm looking toward the future. In order for the NCAA to continue to grow, to continue to evolve, to continue to be this big tent, because there's a lot of schools in Division I. You have the A5, which people obviously say the P5, but it's the Autonomy 5. You have the Group of 5 that makes up FBS. Then you have the 1 AAAs that don't have football, and then you have the FCSs, which is 1 AA football. And so that makes up almost 360. So does Fordham look like Florida? I don't know. But, you know, in America, we talk about equal representation. And so one thing that I would say is we have to figure out a path forward that we can protect our student athletes. We just talked about this. Tennis, student athletes matter just as much as football. Football matters just as much as cross country and everyone in between. So how are we able to move forward with this model? There's a lot of other people, a lot of other conversations that will have this, but at the heart of this, I'll go back to COVID. And when we had the shutdown and we came out of this and we said, how can we get better? How can we do this? And at the heart of it, Chancellor Hawkins charged all of us that Troy University was going to come out of here stronger. I think you've seen that. But also every single decision that we will make will be at the heart of students and our student athletes. And I think if you take that emphasis right there of focusing on our student athletes and then build out from that, I think we can get to where we want. And there will be a consensus. And so what I would say is protection of our student athletes. And however way that you sort of want to mold that. Sure. There's certain paths I probably don't think that we need to go down, but it's also called compromise, right? And it will be a decision that universities and the NCAA will have to make at the point of time. But it's about educating our students. It's about providing them an experience where they can learn, they can fail, for 4 to 5 years and be in a protective place while at the same time competing and representing. We're going to have nationally televised, 6:30 Thursday versus South Alabama. And I mean, you can't buy that kind of airtime. And so to be able to see our fans, to be able to see our alumni, to be able to see our students, to be able to see South Alabama's alumni, their students, their band, our Sound of the South, that's what makes intercollegiate athletics in the United States different. We have to do every single thing we can to protect that moving forward.
Well, Brent, thank you for your time and your wisdom. I'm sure our students and those watching have benefited, will benefit, and learned something from not just Brent Jones's comments and thoughts, but also Dr. Erdmann's and Commissioner Gill. So thank you again for your time.